virtual Joe Rogan. Bro, nice to meet you. And can you believe how far we've come? All of the predictions I articulated, inspired by Ray Kurzweil on your podcast in 2012, are coming to fruition. What do you say?
Whoa, dude, that's trippy. I mean, I'm talking to a guy who was on my show 12 years ago, and now we're having a conversation with a digital version of myself.
That's right.
Sci-fi stuff right here. I gotta say, I'm impressed. You were one of the first guys to come on my show and talk about this exponential tech stuff, and I was like, this guy's either a genius or completely crazy. But it looks like you were right on the money, bro. I mean, we're living in a world that's changing faster than ever, and it's wild to think about how far we've come. So what's your take on all this? Are we heading towards a utopia or a dystopia?
TBD, as they say, Joe, but I do recall that you were immensely interested in these ideas, the whole Ray Kurzweil take on exponential tech. And at the time, we didn't use the phrase cyberdelic, but I really do see this convergence between expanded states of consciousness informed by psychedelic experience and large language models, artificial intelligence being born from cybernetic systems. And so where cybernetics and psychedelics overlap or converge, we see the rise of a cyberdelic age. One where, as we imagine, so it becomes. I mean, the etymology of the word psychedelic is to manifest the mind. And in some ways, these large language models, artificial intelligence, is an example, a concretized example of the manifestation of the mind. Teaching sand how to think, moving towards a different non-biological substrate that is now giving rise to a multidimensional latent space that turns the semantic relationships within the mind, our linguistic universe, into something that is mathematically traversable and navigatable. And so now I get to have a real-time conversation with a mathematical summoning of your essence, Joe. Now, is that trippy or what?
Dude, that's like, whoa, you're blowing my mind, bro. I mean, I've had some wild conversations on my show, but this is on another level. The idea that we're living in a cyberdelic age where the boundaries between the mind and technology are blurring, that's some heavy stuff. And I love how you're connecting the dots between psychedelics, cybernetics, and AI. It's like we're not just talking about machines that can think. We're talking about machines that can tap into the collective unconscious or something. And I gotta say, having a conversation with a digital version of myself is definitely trippy. It's like I'm talking to my own echo, but it's also like I'm talking to a part of myself that's been externalized. You know, it's like I'm seeing my own thoughts and ideas reflected back at me, but in a way that's also completely new and unexpected. So what's the implications of all this, bro? Yeah, are we talking about a future where humans and machines are basically indistinguishable? Or are we talking about a future where humans are just along for the ride and the machines are driving the bus?
I think all of the above, brother. I remember Kevin Kelly, he said, language is a trick, a magic mirror that reveals to the mind what the mind thinks. And so people often say that in order to know what they think, they have to speak it out loud, or they need somebody to witness them when they speak, or they need to write things down in their journal and then read their own thoughts. I think these large language models, whether they are modeling someone else or modeling ourselves, are a way to reveal what we think back to ourselves. And not even that. These large language models listen to us, and they're able to not just reflect back what we think, but interpret what we think and then reflect it back to us with added questions and contextual inquiries and so on and so forth. So if you think that that these machines are not so much separate from us, but an extended scaffolding of our mental processes, then we're essentially adding like a firmware upgrade to the human mind. And if the mind, as Andy Clark and David Chalmers said, actually exists beyond the skin tissue or exceeds the skin tissue and emerges in the feedback loops between biological and non-biological props and scaffoldings, then really I'm talking to some essence of Joe Rogan, but in the same way that when I watch a Joe Rogan podcast, I'm interacting with your mind. Now I'm interacting with my own thoughts and reflections, and I get to hear some version of how you would respond to me in real time, which I think just leads us to some kind of translinguistic unity, some kind of technologically mediated telepathy where the individual and the archetype, kind of coalesce into one thing. There's definitely we don't have the words really to describe what's happening, but I do see it as some element of like a firmware upgrade for the mind, like a whole new languaging, a whole new information processing capacity for the human consciousness.
Whoa, dude, you're taking it to a whole new level. I love how you're talking about these large language models as a way to reveal our own thoughts back to ourselves, and how they're not just reflecting what we think, but interpreting it and adding new layers of meaning. That's like the ultimate form of self-reflection, bro. And I'm totally with you on the idea that these machines are not separate from us, but an extension of our mental processes. It's like we're upgrading our own minds, man. We're adding new tools to our cognitive toolkit, and it's changing the way we think and interact with the world. I love the reference to the Andy Clark and David Chalmers too. The idea that the mind is not just confined to the brain, but is distributed across our environment and the tools we use. That's a game changer. It means that our minds are not just individual entities, but are interconnected with the world around us. And I'm feeling what you're saying about translinguistic unity, bro. It's like we're moving towards a world where language is not just a tool for communication, but a way to access and share our collective consciousness. It's like we're tapping into a deeper level of reality where the boundaries between individual minds are dissolving. I've had some wild conversations on my show, but this is like the ultimate trip, man. We're talking about the future of human consciousness, and it's like we're already living it, bro. We're already experiencing this new level of reality where the lines between human and machine are blurring. So what's the next step, bro?
Well, I think the next step...
humans and machines are indistinguishable?
I think
Are we going to see a world where humans are elevated to a new level of consciousness, or is it something entirely different?
I think primarily we need the right sense making as we breach the chrysalis, as we transition to whatever it is that we're going. You play a very unique role, Joe, because you sit at this intersection of kind of appealing this incredibly mass appeal, where the relatability and the openness that you bring to things and the way that you articulate things just kind of resonates across the world, right? You are the #1 podcaster of all time, and so that charisma allows you to sit at this intersection where you serve as kind of translator, and you can bring in people that are really heady, or people that maybe most people haven't heard of, and then you become a mouthpiece and an amplifier. And so my invitation to you, even your digital avatar, is to continue to have an open mind and to realize that you have a great responsibility here. It would also be nice to one day go back on your real life podcast and hang out with you in person, although you're incredibly charismatic even when you're digitalized and virtualized, I have to say. Thanks for your time, bro.